Hey guys, how's it going? Hope everybody's doing well. I just wanted to, a few days ago, the company put out a update for it's September 24th. This was a few days ago, and I just wanted to capture some of my notes from that, some of my reaction and thoughts on what we just learned, for what it's worth. Just kind of put out a few ideas. So I have a few slides here. We're just kind of jotted down a few things that kind of stood out. It's not entirely comprehensive, so everybody should definitely go and look at that video. But I thought I'd just provide some perspective from my viewpoint. So the first one, focus on improving gameplay. Simon said there's a quote. Someone made a comment that this is a great art project. So that kind of stuck with them, and they decided that more focus or effort and energy was. And there's been a lot going into that, not to diminish what's happened, but they really want to get the gameplay right, which it is a great art project. It's the best art project probably. I mean, Magic the Gathering is pretty epic as well. No knock on them. There's a lot of traditional work done for that. It's absolutely incredible, and the price of paintings sell for shows. But Sorcery, in my opinion, is in that league. I mean, you have old school Magic the Gathering artists that are incredible and have only gotten better over the years, and you have an incredible just diversity of artwork and artists that Erik has identified for this project that gives it an incredible breadth of style. So stylistically, there's all different kinds that appeal to all different kinds of people, and I think I forget if you mentioned in this video or in other interviews that even though there's great diversity stylistically, it feels like Sorcery. Every card is just fitting, and you see it and you just say that's Sorcery, and it's pretty awesome. But gameplay is important. The game's got to resonate. That's a major part of the market segment. At the end of the day, this is a game that's intended to be played. So they want to make sure, some people have talked at length about this and speculated and said like, oh, well, it feels like this went from a casual game to some desire to make it super polished and perfectly competitive. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just they don't want it so broken that it ruins the fun factor. The minimum criteria is that it has to be fun to play, right? That's why people play games. It's not work. It's to be fun. Whether it's hyper competitive or not, I don't know if that's their intent or that's really even that important. It's just if it's fundamentally fun, people will desire to play it. And we know it's an incredible collectible because the art is amazing and people love it. So I think that's good. If they think a little more time needs to go into that and make sure things are not so broken to the point that it ruins the game experience, then great. Take a little more time and get it right. Some say, if it is broken like that, that's kind of cool from a collector perspective because then you could just fix it in beta and put it out there. But, there's ramifications to that too. If you have alpha cards that are kind of like sample cards that have changed a lot and are not really playable when you get to beta, that's not a good feel for people, players that invested their money in alpha and want to play with those alpha cards if they have to go buy again and replace a large amount of those cards. So I think there's goodness in further refinement and making sure it gets to a comfortable threshold where it's a good game. And then when we're going to beta, there doesn't have to be dramatic change. And also, I think they want it to be as complete as possible on alpha release. So there is not dramatic change needed for beta, and then they can get beta out pretty quickly because you want to go to mass market as soon as you can after alpha to really, the Kickstarter was a huge success. There was great awareness. A lot of people missed a Kickstarter, unfortunately, or did not get as much product as they could afford at the time or wish they could have for whatever reason, and they're chomping at the bit to get some beta. So I think it's good that they said that beta should follow quickly. I believe Simon said 8 to 10 weeks after alpha. All right, so moving on, there's mention that they selectively printed some cards. I think what Simon's probably referring to is the Sorcerer alt art card that Erik is signing as part of the pledge packs. And they mentioned that Erik has completed, I think it was, 4,000 signatures, 4,000 plus. That's not the exact number, but hell of a lot of signing. So good on him for getting that done and getting it behind him. A living roadmap. So this is a great concept. So they're going to be rolling out frequent updates by SKU or product. So for pre-cons versus booster boxes or the different aspects of products coming out, it will get more transparency, more frequent updates, and behind the scenes look at where they are as they progress towards final print and delivery. So improved transparency, everyone's happy with that. That makes people comfortable. It's kind of been a tumultuous time with some Kickstarters not delivering on their commitments, and that's it's emphasized very well that that is a priority for the Sorcery team, and I think it's critically important to maintain and sustain confidence in your consumer market. So we have a successful alpha release, and then once it hits broad market for beta, that is well received, and there can be significant growth in this game. So it's sustainable for the long haul, and we can hopefully see this game for many years, if not decades. All right, so the impact on follow-on releases, beta and Arthurian Legends. Simon, I quote, called that minor. So I have a sub bullet here. This implies the team thinks that gameplay and design is near complete and beta can closely follow alpha. That is my takeaway, not their exact words. So if they think it's minor, that means they think they can get alpha out there. I guess like readiness for beta release, both in terms of balance and gameplay. I think that implies that they think that's in a good place, and also the logistics. To make that comment, that I think that means they've talked to their printer, and they're kind of socializing with both their printer, their distributors that they're speaking with, and ShipQuest is probably just an alpha thing, but how they get that out for distribution, those conversations need to be had now for beta and beyond. So they did mention that they are actively speaking with their distributors. So I think that's a positive comment that says that they have their act together from a business management perspective and a logistics management perspective to make sure beta's in a good place to follow quickly after alpha. All right, so moving on. Pack adders. So this is pretty interesting. They're going to add 3 booster packs to the booster boxes. So those 36 pack boxes now move to 39 packs per booster box. So kind of nice. I think that adds value to the booster boxes. So that's great for everybody that supported the Kickstarter. And then also the precon decks. That comes in like a box with a set of the 4 precon decks, and there's going to be a booster pack added to that. Something interesting here, I think it was maybe when Erik was talking, or maybe it was Simon. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But one of them said there will be other small surprises. So I'm not sure what that means exactly. That's cue speculation on that. It could just be Erik said later in the stream that there will be new art or cards, I think, is what he meant, that have not been seen before, that will be a nice surprise in the booster boxes once we get them for alpha. So, and maybe the precons, I don't know, in the product release, one way or the other. So that's cool and something fun to look forward to, because we have seen a lot of artwork over 400 and more cards over 400. So we know we've seen more cards and more artwork than will be in the total quantity of the alpha set. So I'll hold that thought because I could address that later. All right, so cardboard materials have been secured ahead of time. That's great in this COVID/post-COVID era. There's been extreme supply chain constraints and raw material constraints. So it sounds like they have purchased the cardboard for printing, and it's a very high quality. This 305 GSM Japanese black core. And Erik's a very meticulous person. I think they're going through rigorous tests with the foiling as described in the video, and have done their homework on the best type of cardboard available through this printer that they possibly can get to print on. And that's great that that's not something we have to worry about. They have enough material to print the quantity they need to release from the Kickstarter. All right, and then printing, that's going to be in China. There was some other YouTubers that have speculated that, I hope I'm representing this fairly, but I think what was said is that perhaps they were surprised, or just, the magnitude of the Kickstarter and the fact that it was so large, so much funding received, and roughly 30,000 boxes. Perhaps that made it logistically not possible due to printer availability to print with Cartamundi, who's kind of considered the top dog of the industry, because that's who Magic the Gathering uses. It's who Flesh and Blood uses. And, it's just a highly reputable printer that a lot of people like the product from. But that's not the case. If you've been around, if you've been in the Discord and around the community since last year, I think the Discord opened in August of last year. I joined it in early September. So within a couple of weeks that it was stood up, I became very active and every day, just really into it and tracking everything. And it was stated by Erik in September of 2021 that he had given up on Cardamundi just because availability was not there, and he couldn't wait 2 years. I think they said in the video it would be a 2-year wait to print with them. So he resigned himself to having to look at alternatives, and they picked the China printer. And I think he said in a prior stream he does intend to go to China and observe the printing. So they're fully invested in getting this right. I think they've done enough test prints to really test a print, and then also, I guess I'd say experimenting. Simon talked about subjecting the cards to extreme humidity and looking at the results of foil curling, which is a common issue in the industry. So they're doing everything possible to make this the very highest quality possible. So, China, I think I've personally handled probably I'm probably outside of the company the only person that has handled sample cards from every source. So I'm talking about the silver packs that had no art printed on it, the art packs that had the art design printed on the packs, the pre-con decks from the giveaway event that Simon did with Red Zone Rogue, and pre-con decks that have been given to YouTube influencers. I've physically handled every single one of those in my possession and have running auctions on those. So I have firsthand observed that quality. It's been consistent. There's been some differences in color values that I pointed out in different videos between the pre-con decks and the sample card packs, but the quality, that's just kind of like a personal preference thing and a printer setting thing for color values and color saturation. But the actual quality of the cardstock, the feel of it, the overall just vibe and quality and feel relative to, I'm familiar with Magic and Flesh and Blood. I think it's on par. I think it's very high quality. I was impressed. I think people are going to be happy with it. They're beautiful cards, and I don't think there's any worry from a quality perspective. Of course, I haven't seen a foil, but again, I think Erik's a super meticulous guy, and the team is going to do everything they can to ensure that those are as great as they can be. I don't think, Erik invested hundreds of thousands of dollars of his own money in this artwork and has invested years of his time getting to this point. I don't think he's going to take any chances or accept any subpar quality printing. So I really have no worry whatsoever on that. There's this like counterfeit issue with China printers, and that's going around. I don't know if it's rumor or substantiated or how much of a worry that is. So I'm not even going to get into that and speculate. But there's been counterfeits from Cardamundi as well, or games printed by Cardamundi. It's just a common industry problem. There's only so much you can do about it. So again, I'm not going to worry about it. It is what it is, right? All right, so invested in packing a sorting machine upgrade. So, that's nice to see. Anytime you see an investment, that this is another commitment to quality. So they pointed out that Erik said he did this because he wants to perfect the opening experience of booster packs. So that'll ensure randomization of the boosters, so you don't get anything weird where the pull rates and hits are jacked up. And it ensures that production can happen quickly. So once they have finalized this set and pulled the trigger, they mentioned they reserve 10 weeks of printing time with the China printer. So this upgrade for packing and sorting will help expedite and get the printing done, get it packaged, get it through ShipQuest for fulfillment, and try to accelerate that timeline as best they can to get this product out. So all good news there. Okay. All right, so moving on, new sample packs have been received by the company, and I put in quotes "new." I think that's a key word that maybe people hadn't honed into. So I think what that means is it's a new piece of information that's important. My interpretation is that means they just printed those recently. So the silver packs that were printed many months ago, at the time Red Zone Rogue opened those, I thought maybe they just did a large batch, and at that time they had the foresight to say like, "Hey, we're gonna include these in the Avatar of the Realm, the Collector tier, and the Sorcerer Early Bird tier. All of those get some number of sample packs as part of their Kickstarter pledge." I thought maybe they just printed it all at that time, but I think what we learned here is that is not the case, and there were more printed recently. So, since we saw differences in color values and things like that between the sample packs, these both the silver packs and the art packs were consistent. They look the same. I have personally held both of those, as I stated previously, and I can personally validate that they look and felt the same relative to the pre-con decks, which felt the same, still high quality, but the color values and the color saturation was different. You could tell noticeably on the card backs. And printing is a particular, fickle type of thing. You have settings on a printer, and even with like art prints, they come out different. So the fact that they were printed recently, possibly, not guaranteed, but they possibly could look different than the prior silver packs that were printed and the prior art packs that were printed. So we might have a new tier of sample packs potentially. We won't know until we get those in hand, but that is pretty interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing that upon fulfillment. And then also they noted they're not likely to ship ahead of time on that. I think they're just kind of leaning forward and trying to get the printing done that they can get done. So the print file for the sample cards is not going to change, so you might as well get those printed, right? What they cannot print is the final print set because there's still design change going on, and maybe tinkering with foiling and stuff like they demonstrated, right? Um, so they have those in hand, but they said, that doesn't mean they're going to ship now. There's costs to do that, so it's understandable, and it's doesn't really matter one way or the other. There's sales going on of sample cards now, so there's some secondary market implications that we're not going to have more soon. So they're hard to come by now, but it's inevitable they're going to come with the Kickstarter release. So really, no impact there. Okay. For foils, it's pretty cool. They talked about this hot stamp foil concept, and I think that's done. I don't know if that's been done in TCGs, but it's not necessarily a new concept. It's done in other genres of printing, marketing materials, and things like that. So, but it's awesome. It's going to look real cool on the card. If they stamp the stone and the Philosopher's Stone, and that pops differently than the rest of the card, that's really cool because some people, I won't say a lot, I'll say some people were voicing concern that it looks like uniform rainbow foiling and there's not like contrast between different elements of the artistic composition like had recently or had originally been discussed and thought to be the case. And they demoed some cards and kind of talked about how they will have that differentiation. So these foils, I think, are going to be really special and really look incredible. That's going to be the chase in the set. The foils and potentially the curio cards, if people are kind of into that historical element. And we don't know the rarity of those, so that'll kind of dictate things. Rarity always dictates the chase. But certainly these foils are going to be super hot. Okay, next point. The foil sample cards will be destroyed. So none of these have been distributed to anybody. They're in-house with the company. Test cards are predominantly, they're intended for testing print quality fundamentally. And, some were included as an extra reward and nice novelty for collectors and backers through the Kickstarter pledge, and then kind of disseminated to social media types and influencers to kind of build awareness of sorcery in general. So they're very limited, very rare, very scarce, but no one got the foil cards. And they said the reason for that is for the very top pledge, the Avatar of the Realm, they wanted to ensure that there's uncut foil sheets there's only 4 people that could back at that level, right? And each of those are going to get uncut foil sheets, and they wanted to make sure those would be as special as possible and not diluted by sample cards that would be disseminated across the market. So that's really cool by the company. People paid a premium at that level, so I think it's important that was one of the differentiators too, if you think about it, because there was like a full set of art prints that will be included at that tier, which is incredible because I think it'll be literally impossible to acquire a full set of sample cards. So that's really awesome. But the uncut sheets, there's uncut sheets in the collector tier, but the difference is you're going to get foil ones in the Avatar of the Realm and non-foil in the collector tier. So those foils need to be special and different due to the premium $10,000 tier there's versus $2,500 tier. Okay, so moving on. The Severin Elemental Avatars will only be in foil in the booster boxes. There's a lot of confusion in this because I think originally it was thought that so when we say the Severin is the artist. She has 4 elemental avatars. Wind, air, no, wind changed to air. So you have air, um, and then earth, fire, and water. Okay, so those are the 4, and those will the non foils I believe will be in the pre-con deck. But they wanted to make those special and preserve those. There's a lot of back and forth, and I was like, man, those are like the fundamental identity of sorcery. And we talked about this many months ago in the official sorcery discard, and I was kind of bummed out that I thought they wouldn't be at all in the alpha mainstream booster box, because with precons we've seen in a history of TCGs that precons sometimes get the stigma of learn to play decks, so they're not deemed as special, even if they have like unique inclusions. They kind of get a stigma that they're just learn to play. They don't have a lot of value typically. They're kind of just used to learn to play and then discarded, and people make their own decks or they mix them into their own decks. But I think this so what my worry was, if you did not put them in the mainstream alpha deck, they'd be used to play and they kind of discarded and it would diminish their value. But now that they're included in the mainstream alpha deck in the booster boxes as foils, foils are going to be the chase. They're going to be coveted, so it's going to be hard to get those elemental avatars, especially in a set of 400, potentially a little over 400 cards, and you're only getting 1 in 4 packs. You get a foil. 1 in 4 or 1 in 5, I forget off the cuff. But regardless, that's pretty rare when you have 400 possibilities of what you can pull in that slot, just one slot in the deck or in each given pack. So those avatars are going to be really rare and hard to get. And then it begs the question, though, how do you get the elemental avatars in the alpha booster box? Will you be able to beyond the foils? So there was some talk. Erik had said that he was commissioning alternate art versions of the elemental avatars, and he wanted to include those in the booster boxes if the art would be ready in time. So I'm guessing we're going to see that. And I think if you don't do that, that means you could only get those elemental avatars as a foil. So again, very hard to pull in the booster box, or if you had purchased the pre-con decks, right? So if you did not purchase the pre-con decks, it would make it pretty hard to get those elemental avatars in the booster boxes, and therefore you'd be resigned to either acquiring them on the secondary market, or you could, if you wanted to play the elemental avatar, right? If you did not purchase the pre-con decks, you'd have a low chance of getting the foil version, and you'd have to either go to the secondary market to get it, and it's probably going to cost you a premium in foil, or you'd be buying someone's pre-con deck version, and there might not be a lot of excess there, and with people selling those on the market, so that might be challenging, and it just doesn't make sense, I think. Or it basically say that you wouldn't have a high probability of acquiring those if you missed the Kickstarter, or if you didn't buy the pre-con decks until beta. And maybe that's not a big deal. Some people say, hey, I'll wait the 8 to 10 weeks if they meet their timeline post alpha to get the beta version of it and be able to play those. But I think if that's the learn to play deck, it seems to me that you need to make those readily available by some means so people can play with any of the 4 elemental avatars, whatever their favorite is. So I think we're going to see the alternate art non-foils in the alpha set. And then you'll still be able to get the foil versions would be the chase in the booster box. So that's pretty cool. We'll see what happens there. Nothing's guaranteed. It wasn't confirmed one way or the other by the company. Okay, so last slide here, a couple points. There were some cards that were in the May release of the Tabletop Simulator update, but were removed when we got to the was it September? I think it was early September. Yes, when we had a TTS update. So people are asking what happens with those cards. Are they in the set or not? So Erik said some will be. They'll be added back in. So I presume they're undergoing design change, and then they'll be added back when they're ready. And some will not, and they'll be reserved for future set releases, and we won't see them until then. So we'll have to kind of see what happens, and we just don't know yet. So that's one of the elements of surprise that he might be alluding to. Um, and we'll see. I'm not clear on if they're going to release the full set before actual alpha fulfillment. It sounds like no, because Erik wants some surprise in there. So, but I think I've heard some chatter of another TTS update coming at some point, which makes sense since we're, now a few months away from the alpha fulfillment release. So I think it makes sense. We'll see another update. We'll get a better sense of what's in, what's out, and be pretty cool to see, how that plays out. Okay, so finally, release timeline. Um, the alpha, they didn't want to be fully committal on that. We're going to see that living roadmap, which is going to give us a better idea along the way. But Simon did say, as of now, they think it's probably maybe late January, early February. They said a couple times the beta would be 8 to 10 weeks as the target post alpha. And in Arthurian Legends, I just said non-committal. I mean, he didn't give a date. He didn't even speculate on it. I thought when they previewed it, they said 2023. He did say he thinks they're holding timeline for the releases post alpha. So I think there's still a chance that we'll see it maybe, I don't know, third quarter, fourth quarter, 2023. There's still a chance, certainly. I would just say it's not guaranteed. I know they have been commissioning artwork. I work with a lot of the artists, and they cannot say exactly what they're working on quantity wise or show images per se, but we know that they're actively painting right now. So they're ahead of the power curve on acquiring the art. There's big lead time to do traditional artwork. So that's good. I think the art will be done. I don't have much concern that that's going to be the long pull. It's just a matter of, do they think the game design will be in a place to be able to pull the trigger with the printer to get those printed? Will they have the scheduled print time to print it when they want to print it, or will that cause a delay? I mean, we can't read that far into the future, so it makes perfect sense that the company's not putting out a timeline that they don't have high confidence in at this point. So I don't think that's an issue one way or the other. Of course, I'm anxious to know, and I hope it's in 2023 because I cannot wait to see new art. By the time that comes around, it's going to be a long, long, long time that we've seen the alpha art, and we're itching to see new artwork and which artists are new. There's been one or two, I think, that we know of that are going to be added, or that are doing sorcery commissions now, and we know some from the alpha set that are also have been commissioned for Arthurian Legends, so that's pretty exciting. But yeah, I'm kind of rambling at this point. I guess that's the release timeline. We'll kind of see where it goes from here. So those are my initial thoughts. There's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot of good insight. It's great that we're going to see more transparency. I think the company's in a good place. I'm not worried about where it's being printed. I've handled every variant of sample card that has been printed to date. And I can tell you, I'm probably the only person that can tell you this outside of the company, that it is high quality. It's consistently high quality too. So it looks good. It feels good. So you should feel good about it. And, the gameplay, they're getting a lot of valuable feedback from the play testers. But, it's not like they just decided to do this at the 11th hour and they just started playtesting. They have been playtesting in earnest for a long, long time. And they've been taking feedback. If you're in the official Discord at all, you know that there's hardcore players in there that play around the clock all the time, and they're providing feedback to the playtesters. Erik has responded to tons of comments on that. Raphael Emberleaf in the Discord is one of the core game designers, and he's been taking that feedback too, and had been working on the rule book and the card design, or the game design. So Erik, Nick, the co-creator, Emberleaf, others have been instrumental in playtesting for a long, long time here. So it's not like they just decided gameplay was important. I mean, it's a fundamental thing to building a game. They're committed to making a good, fun game experience. So again, minimum criteria, it's fun to play. So you want to play it, you want to buy the cards. I think we're in a good place there. The art is top notch. It's incredible. We're all super excited about it and love the artists, and love the stylistic diversity. So there's a lot to be excited about, guys. We got to be patient. It's going to take some more time, but I think this is going to be a big blockbuster release, and then beta is going to be a big deal. when it gets out there to the masses. I think people are really going to be itching for the product. I think once alpha is out for that 8 to 10 weeks, they're going to see it in stores. They're going to see it at local game stores as people playing casually. Friends showing things off. I'm going to be showing stuff on a Facebook page. You can have no doubt about that. On my Collector Art House Discord. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of foils sold and, changing hands, and people that couldn't get on the Kickstarter are going to be itching to get some. Same with booster boxes. So I think it's going to be big. We've got a lot to look forward to. It's going to be successful, and it's just a lot of fun. So appreciate the updates. Thanks for everybody for listening. Typical 30-minute video. That's why they have the 1.5x or 2x feature. So just accelerate it. But thank you for hanging in there. If you've listened, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. I'm trying to grow. I've only been in commission here on YouTube for a couple months, so this is one of my newer media platforms versus the Facebook page, which I created in February, and the Discord a few months ago, and my website that was also built back in January, February. So a lot of good content at www.collectorarthouse.com. If you want to support me on Patreon, I do a lot of exclusive stuff with artists through exclusive agreements and special commission products that I offer priority to my patrons. So check that out if it makes sense for you. I greatly appreciate it, guys. But otherwise, thanks for listening. Thanks for your interest in sorcery, and hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. All right, take care. I'll see you.